Hi, everybody. Welcome to Cox Connections. Brad Grundmeyer, Director of Public Government Affairs for Cox New Orleans. Thank you so much for tuning into our show. Glad to have you here. We're happy to be joining this segment with Executive Director for City Year New Orleans, an organization we're just crazy about here at Cox, Ms. Peggy Mendoza. Thank you, Peggy, for coming by. As well as Ms. Patty Riddlebarger, who is the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility at Entergy, a good friend, of course, for Cox as well. Thank you both for coming by here today. We've got some really interesting information that we're going to be sharing. First, about a national magazine, the Oxford American, and a recent conference that took place. Please tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
The Oxford American Symposium on Education in the South recently took place here on the campus of Tulane University a couple weeks ago. And it came to New Orleans because New Orleans is the focal point for public education and the transformation of public education. Everyone is looking at New Orleans to see, you know, what's happened here and how can we replicate those lessons.
Truly the grand experiment that, you know, that people have known to.
So they wanted to come here and have that discussion right here in New Orleans.
And that's been fantastic. The event was, actually the actual conference was back in October the 8th.
And we had tremendous representation from all of the organizations that are just really at the forefront of what's happening in the reform movement. We had City Year, we had Teach for America, New Schools for New Orleans, Artist Corps, you know, on and on. It really was a tremendous opportunity for all of those groups who are engaged to get involved and have dialogue.
Well, Patty, you know, in our circles, obviously, we both do the same thing for our respective companies. For instance, why did Entergy want to sponsor and get involved in this?
Education is the future of our community, and we can only be as strong as our educational system. And right now, what's happening is tremendously exciting, but we need to be sure that we take the steps that need to take place in order to keep the momentum going. And you know, where does it need to go from here? What's the game plan? Who are the players that need to be involved and engaged to keep things happening? And so that's why it was an important discussion to have.
And I think that's well said. And I think, as I said, it's the grand experiment here, and we're kind of a petri dish in some ways, because everybody's kind of looking to see what we cultivate and we're able to create. And we've had missteps, and hopefully those were lessons learned. But to that point, we just can't make the step and say, oh, and not learn from it, because, as we said, the game plan, the roadmap, needs to be laid out very strategically, and one that's going to make you know, significant inroads and impact, not just for schools, but for children.
Absolutely.
And that's what's most important. Tell me about City Year's involvement with this, Peggy.
So City Year, we were very honored to be asked to speak on one of the panels, along with a lot of other incredible organizations that Patty mentioned.
Some great sessions.
Absolutely. And the session was really about these organizations that have come to help in the public school system. And I think that for the most part, what we all have in common is that we add resources to the school. So whether that's PlayWorks with how to have recess and play, City Year bringing 10 core members into the schoolhouse and adding human capital, communities and schools bringing resources from all over the community into the school. So it was a discussion of all of these groups and what we have seen in the schools, what we're doing, how we're doing it, things that we're learning, things we're doing well, how do we do better.
What was your impressions of those sessions that you had a chance to participate in? I
thought the session had a lot of great dialogue and a lot of great conversation about what's happening in the New Orleans public school system. We also had somebody from the Archdiocese representing the parochial schools.
Excellent.
So it was a good kind of good mix on the panel.
And for you, Patty, what was your impressions?
Well, the keynote address was given by Patricia Crisp of the U.S. Department of Education, and she laid out the plans,
better than that?
The administration's plans, and some really startling statistics. She said a decade ago, the U.S. led the world in number of college graduates, and now we are tied for 9th. And the administration has a goal to retake first place within the next decade. But in order to do that, college graduation rates are going to have to increase by 50%. And so she said that they are really paying close attention to what's going on in New Orleans to see what lessons can be replicated here in other communities to help the country reach that goal. Because she said the countries that are beating us today in the schoolhouse are going to be beating us tomorrow in the global marketplace.
You had mentioned,
that was very startling.
Oh, I'm sure. And what's interesting too is, and again, thanks for the Oxford American, the magazine, for supporting this. It typically trends for education in the South, or at least their focus was. You know, there, and I'm just reading excerpt from a lively and creative discussion of the trends, forces, personalities and issues that were impacting and defining the direction of education in the South. What were their takeaways, if you will, not to speak on their behalf, but they were the catalyst for much of this. What do you think there were takeaways from their perspective?
I think they were very pleased to be able to bring this group of individuals together to have the discussion.
Yeah, I think they dedicated the whole issue to education. So every article, I advise anyone to pick it up and take a look at it, but they really spent a lot of time delving into kind of all aspects of education, including the chartering piece and the lottery that goes into that, which was one of their great articles in the issue. But I think they dedicated this issue to education and really just dove right in.
What do you feel, based on your takeaways, the biggest challenge for education in New Orleans?
Personally, I think it's sustaining the momentum. A lot of dollars came into the city after Katrina. A lot of federal dollars, a lot of National Foundation dollars. A lot of those were 3- and 5-year grants, and now they're finished, and some are not being renewed. And so, how are we going to be able to sustain the momentum without perhaps some of the influx and the assistance that came in from outside? I think is one of the biggest challenges.
For yourself, Peggy?
For me, I mean, the resources are always huge, but I think human capital, adding, these schools are all under-resourced. So from a place of financially under-resourced, people under-resourced, being able to, for City Year adding 10 extra adults into the schoolhouse, for all of these other incredible programs that participated on the panel, the people that they add into the school to really help the school be successful. I think all of that has played into, recently it just came out about the double-digit increases in our cohort graduation rate in the state. And I think it all plays into everybody is taking part in this. From the business community like Entergy, that's an incredible supporter of all things education, including City Year specifically, but this education symposium, to all these different organizations, to the schools themselves, and I think all of that plays into the success that we've seen and the much more success that we need to have.
Because, as you were saying, it made me think about, we've made so many great strides in education from where we were. And I think what most parents are most appreciative of is choice. You have choice. You have probably the greatest menu of different types of education and styles and areas of focus and concentration than we've ever had. I think more than most communities, if any community in the United States. But that's where we are today. And I probably the symposium really kind of tried to look 5, 10 years away, both short term and long term.
And there was a good, healthy discussion about charters and choice versus neighborhood schools, and the amount of time that kids spend going from here to across the city, and are those dollars better spent in education, on resources, books, and more teachers, as opposed to transportation, and of course, but right now that's what we're dealing with.
If anybody is interested in learning a little bit more, is there a website they can go to learn about what the symposium was, or
the
some
Oxford
findings?
American? It's www.oxfordamerican.com.
I think we have that. We can put up for everybody. Again, it's the Oxford American Symposium. The website, you can first go to their Facebook page if you'd like to, facebook.com/Oxford American, as well as just go to their website, which we have www.oxfordamerican.org for more information. And thank you as well, I may say, Patty, for Entergy getting, I'm sorry, Peggy, Patty for getting involved. Entergy, always a great sponsor and doing such great work. Peggy, great work that your group is doing at hands-on, at City Year, excuse me. Just really proud of the work that you guys are doing, and this is good stuff.
Thank you.
Learn more. Go everybody to oxfordamerican.org for more information. Thank you both for coming by today.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the day, and thanks for your passion, both of you, for education in New Orleans. Greatly appreciated. All right, that's it for this segment of Cox Connections, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.